This is Keetana, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce. Today I am here to present a lecture series on the subject Statistics for Social Research on the topic Measures of Dispersion. First we can see what is statistics. So statistics is the collection, analysis, interpretation and presentation of data using statistical tools like percentage, average, regression and forecasting methods. So in that we can see what is measures of dispersion. So measures of dispersion refers to statistical tools used to describe the spread or variability of data values in a data set. So while measures of central tendency, in previous video we have seen what is measures of central tendency and what are the measures. So mean, median, mode or the central tendency. So that is to identify the central value. Measures of dispersion provide insights into how much the data deviate from the central value. So in easy words we can see they show whether the data points are closely packed or widely scattered. Common measures of dispersion include range, quartile deviation, mean deviation and standard deviation. So these measures are essential for understanding the reliability and consistency of data. So for example, two data sets may the same average but very different variability. So dispersion helps in identifying such differences. A low dispersion indicates consistency while a high dispersion shows greater variability or risk. So we can see the advantage shows variability in data. So measures of dispersion helps us to understand how the data is spread out or closely clustered. So using central tendency. So this gives a complete picture of data set distribution and helps in comparing data sets. So even when two data sets have the same average, they might behave very differently. So dispersion measures allows us to compare how consistent or volatile different data sets are, revealing the patterns not visible through averages alone. And the next one is supports risk assessment. In field like finance, standard deviation is commonly used to assess the risk or volatility of an investment. A high dispersion in returns indicates more uncertainty and potential risk. Next is indicates consistency and reliability. A low value of dispersion such as small range or low standard deviation suggests the data points are consistent and predictable. So this will be helpful to evaluate the stability of performance, production or result over the time. Next is essential in quality of control. So in manufacturing and quality management, monitoring variation in product dimensions or process outcome is the key measures like range, variance and help detect inconsistencies and maintain standards. Next is aids in effective decision making. So by understanding the spread of data, decision makers can assess potential outcome more accurately, allowing them to take informed decision actions based on the risk and variability involved. So we can see the measures, what are the measures of dispersion. So first one is absolute measures and next is relative measures. So in absolute measures we have range, variance, standard deviation, mean deviation, quartile deviation. So in relative measures, coefficient of range, coefficient of variation, coefficient of mean deviation and coefficient of quartile deviation. First we can see what is absolute measures of dispersion. So if the dispersion of data within an experiment has to be determined, the absolute measures of dispersion should be used. So these measures usually express variations in a data set with respect to the average of the deviations of observations. So most commonly used measures are range, variance, standard deviation, mean deviation and quartile deviation. So in range, if a given data set has to find out the range, it can be defined as the difference between maximum value and minimum value. So we can see the difference between the maximum value and minimum value to find out the range. Next is variance. So the average square deviation from the mean of the given data, it is also a variance. So this measures of dispersion checks the spread of the data about the mean. Next is standard deviation. So next is standard deviation. It is the square root of variance gives the standard deviation. So it also the measures about the data set about mean. Next is mean deviation. It gives the average data absolute deviation about the central points. So these points could be mean, median or mode. So in quartile deviation, it can be defined as a half of the difference between third quartile and first quartile in the given data set. So next is relative measures of dispersion. If the data of a separate data set have different units and need to be compared, then relative measures of dispersion are used. So the measures are expressed in form of ratios, percentage or unitless. So we have coefficient of range, variation, mean deviation and quartile deviation. So in range, as we have seen in a previous video, maximum value minus minimum value. So that is for range. For coefficient of range, we have to find out highest value and lowest value in the data set and sum the highest and lowest value so that we can find coefficient of range. So for coefficient of variation, it is expressed in the form of percentage. And for mean deviation, we have to find out the central point of the value. And in quartile deviation, it is the third quartile and first quartile to sum up both the values to find out the quartile. So we can see difference between measures of dispersion and central tendency. So the difference is, so in measures of dispersion, we have to quantify the variability of data to use dispersion. So in central tendency, we have to quantify the data's average behavior. In dispersion, we have variance, standard deviation, mean deviation and quartile deviation. But in central tendency, we have mean, median and mode. So the measures of dispersion are used to determine spread of data. And measures of dispersion can be classified into two types, absolute and relative dispersion. And absolute measures of deviation have the same units as the data and relative measures are unitless. Range, variance, standard deviation, quartile deviation and mean deviation are the absolute measures. Hope the video was useful and the content was easily legible. Thank you.